Have you ever been in a situation where you're in a certain environment, you're having a certain conversation, or you're meeting a certain type of person, whether it be a friend, stranger, family member, and then suddenly this spike of emotion kicks in, throwing you out of balance, out of control, sometimes for even days, weeks, months, your thoughts just start running. In this episode, we're going to look at emotional triggers and how we can manage them. And not only manage them, how can we resolve them forever? So like I mentioned, usually there's a certain event, person, environment that ends up triggering some sort of emotion. And an emotional trigger is just something that I would say is something more than what you can handle in the moment, because we all experience a variety of emotions day to day. But we have this threshold, and whenever it exceeds the threshold, whenever that emotion exceeds a threshold, that's what an emotional trigger is. It ends up throwing us out of balance. This can lead us to reacting, making a bad decision, binging on something, engaging in behaviors that we wouldn't normally do or are unhealthy for us. There's a range of things that can happen with these emotional triggers, but in the simplest way, it just doesn't feel nice. So step one into managing your emotional triggers is awareness. We need to start identifying the events that trigger us and even make a note of it. Maybe you have a note app open just called triggers. Every time something spikes you more than what you feel is normal or more than what you're used to, note it down. Or at the end of the day, write a journal, review your day, and see what kind of emotions you experienced during the day, what was triggered. You may even see that there's certain themes when it comes week to week. But the important thing is to find the patterns, because sometimes we will be in different situations, different people, different environments. However, the trigger, the emotion that's being triggered is the same. So make sure to know what triggered you and what emotion was it. What label can you put to that emotion? Was it fear? Was it anxiety? Was it anger? Was it sadness, depression, overwhelm? Just start making mental note. And what happens with just that is that we move from the seesaw of reaction to response. It's like a seesaw. When we're unconscious of behaviors, it's easy to fall onto the reaction side of the seesaw. We may blurt out something we don't want to. We may engage in behaviors that are unhealthy for us. We start getting non-stop thoughts. But when you start to realize that, hey, these are the situations that trigger me, you start to move more to the response side of the seesaw. You become aware not only after the emotion is triggered, but you start to see the build-up. You start to notice in your body that, okay, as you're walking towards this person or you're going into this environment, certain maybe feeling starts arising in the stomach, and it starts to grow and grow and grow. But the thing is, once you even acknowledge and notice, oh, there's a feeling and it's about to start growing, whoop, you've taken the power away from it. You're now putting yourself in a position to respond. And sometimes, even if we didn't react and we were able to hold ourselves in the situation, sometimes we get incessant thoughts. Thoughts keep running about either the situation, or maybe you even remember previous situations where a similar thing had happened. So this kind of brings us to the next step, which is the resolution. Now that we're aware of a common denominator of emotion that occurs in maybe the same situation again and again, or multiple different situations, we can deal with it in a safe space. What we essentially need to do is to allow our body to feel this feeling and feel that it's safe feeling this feeling. When we give time to sit there with a feeling in a particular way, not just any way, not just crying your eyes out. When you sit with your feeling in a particular way, your nervous system gets time to identify it, recognize it, and instead of falling into the fight or flight or contracting because it's overwhelmed with the feeling, your nervous system learns how to react to the feeling, how to process the feeling. And that's essentially what we need to do. The reason we have a trigger in the first place is that we've constantly reached this threshold without resolution. We've constantly had this spike of emotional trigger, whether it be anxiety, fear, depression, anger, but we've not been able to complete the loop because the feeling arrives out of nothingness and it can return into nothingness. But when we end up stopping that journey, that's when the emotional triggers stay with us. Now, the best way to do this is a meditation I have in my emotional healing bundle, which you can download for free. But I'll explain the basic logic behind it, which is you bring up that emotion, which you can do by remembering that environment or situation that triggers you, recognizing where that feeling is in your body, how it feels, the texture around it, and allowing it, accepting it, saying, hey, feeling, you're here, I accept you, you're welcome, I'm not resisting you, you're completely valid. That already starts to open up some space, and then from there you need to start feeling more space behind and around the feeling. Just feel that there's more space that exists behind this feeling and around this feeling. And what that does, it allows your nervous system to relax so that this holding pattern starts to unfold. As you give your nervous system room and space to relax, it feels safe to allow this feeling to open up. And as it opens up, it starts to process, it starts to heal, it starts to calm down. It's almost like you teach your body how to process this kind of feeling, how to bring it to completion, because you haven't been able to do that before. And what slowly happens is you build this resilience or strength in observing a feeling rather than instantly getting entangled in the feeling. When you first do this meditation, you will find yourself observing, getting entangled in the feeling, observing, getting entangled in the feeling, and it goes on and on. But slowly, each time you step back as the observer into the space, you start to strengthen there, you start to make that place your home, and that's when the feeling really gets to unravel and heal. And I also have another meditation, I call it the time travel, just for convenience, where you kind of regress back to a memory that this feeling may have originated with. And in similar, it does the same thing. It teaches you how to feel this feeling and resolve it and bring it to a completion. Now, you don't always need to do the time travel. You can just focus completely on the emotional presence healing, and that in itself will get to the root without you necessarily needing to know. So if you find those kind of meditations difficult, where you almost have to go back to a memory, then you don't need to do it that way. The emotional presence healing is a nice, slow, step-by-step way. Then the last step is to repeat. When you first do the meditation and you come to a completion, you may have brought the feeling from like an 8 out of 10 intensity to a 6 out of 10 to a 4 out of 10. And what you'll notice is when you go to those same situations which trigger you, they don't feel the same. In that seesaw of reaction response, it's like you naturally tip to response, because the feeling is under the threshold, or in fact you've actually increased your threshold is what happens. You've increased your ability to hold and to deal and to manage difficult emotions. So as you repeat, as you identify again, hey, I've come into the situation again, it's triggered me, but hey, it's a 6 out of 10 now, or 4 out of 10. When you repeat the process of step 2, the resolution, then it will go down again and again and again until you're no longer triggered by the situation. And automatically you'll notice that your thoughts and your thinking around the situation changes. You don't need to do any forced affirmations or mind techniques to divert your attention away from the thoughts or to change those thoughts into positive ones. It's quite exhausting actually, and it can make the situation worse. It's the emotion that is the glue that brings the intensity to those thoughts. Those thoughts are only an issue because of the strong emotional charge you have behind them. So once you deal with the emotion, automatically the thoughts around the situation will change. If there's a problem you're having, you'll automatically start thinking of a solution. And that's simply what we call the reticular activating system, or RAS, which is your selective focus. It sees your reality and it filters what it focuses on based on your beliefs, on your feeling of your state on the moment. So before, you may have been filtering events from anger, despair, fear, and so you almost feel constricted, like there's no way out. But once you deal and feel and process and complete these emotions, suddenly the filter changes and you see, hey, there's many solutions to the issues I'm facing. Now, to summarize, step 1 is awareness. Journal or make a note on your app on your phone called triggers. Identify the triggering events, people, situations, and start to notice the pattern. What common feelings do you have in those situations? So not only note down the situations, the feeling as well, and see what situations bring about the same feeling. Then move on to step 2, which is the resolution. This is where we, in a safe environment, we learn how to process and complete and deal with these feelings, so that when we come back to those same situations, the intensity of the feeling falls from an 8 out of 10 to a 4 out of 10. And when we repeat this, which is step 3, eventually a 0 out of 10. So now, instead of being triggered and falling into the reaction side of the seesaw, we now are in complete control and we fall to the response. We can take the data that the emotion gives us and respond in a healthy way. You know, just because you feel a bit of anger or sadness, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's a piece of data that tells you something about how you feel about the situation. Now, when it's above the threshold, it's more of a trigger. It may not be an accurate overview or accurate data in the situation at the moment. But once it's no longer a trigger, if you still feel a bit of anger, maybe your boundary has generally been broken or violated in a situation. If you feel anxious, maybe you're picking up on something's not right about a certain environment or person. So it's not that these emotions are invalid. We just need to go through a process of being able to be in a calm state while experiencing the feeling, so that we can accurately see what's going on. Now, dealing with your feelings and emotions can be daunting, so I do have one-to-one sessions which you can go to my website manvirdhinse.com. That's also where you'll find my free meditations. And if you found this valuable, make sure you share this with someone who can benefit from this. Let's spread the healing, let's spread the love. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.